A lot going on up in the Chicagoland area, as always, and it seems every weekend there's a new list of headlines of people being shot, people being killed, but you've also got the immigration issue that's very much top of mind for residents in Chicago, as even more money goes out to pay for housing and rent for undocumented migrants. To discuss this further, we're joined now by William Kelly. He's a reporter out of Chicago. William, thanks for taking time with us, as always. What's going on the ground there?
Well, thank you, Greg. Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, there is a new bill to force landlords to rent to migrants. And this has always been voluntary. Obviously, anyone who owns a building can rent to anyone that they want, right? And they can also be careful not to rent to people who can't pay rent, right? Or might cause some harm or disruption to the building. The new law that Governor Pritzker is supporting will make that mandatory for landlords. And yeah, as you know, we've been talking about the Inn of Chicago, the luxury hotel right off the Magnificent Mile, a block or two away from where I'm reporting at this moment. $7 million has been spent at that location, 7 million taxpayer dollars, I should say. And well, they're looking to spend $25 million to pay the rent of the migrants that will be forced upon landlords in not only the city of Chicago, Greg, but the entire state of Illinois.
Yeah, so this law, ultimately, it says that, a person's immigration status is secured through the Human Rights Act. And, that act includes a whole bunch of other things. You can't discriminate based off race. You can't discriminate based off gender or sexual orientation. Well, now it includes you can't discriminate on the basis of your immigration status. And that has some landlords concerned that they're not able to properly screen who's going to be living in the property that they own. So there's obviously going to be some interesting growing pains there to see how that plays out. But William, you talk about the tax dollars that are being used for this. Of course, the city of Chicago's already approved like $52 million. That's on top of the tens of millions they already approved to spend for housing migrants, and that's just for a few months' time. Let alone the 40 some odd million dollars that the state taxpayers are giving to Chicago for the housing issue, and that does not take into consideration the $550 million state taxpayers are going to use to subsidize the health care for undocumented migrants in the state of Illinois over the age of 65. So obviously, this is a big issue. We've even heard presidential candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, he said that he was in the south side of Chicago talking with residents there, and he said that they raised concerns about, what about us? What about all the resources that the black community in Chicago needs? What are you hearing on the street from residents in Chicago about the immigration issue?
Well, we have video at reporterwilliamjkelly.com. We also have a petition for anyone to sign to try and put the brakes on what is happening in the city of Chicago and now the state of Illinois. As a lifelong Chicagoan, someone who was born on the south side, by the way, and I love Chicago with all of my heart, and it's broken my heart year in and year out, election season, decades now. I've tried to say to leaders, business, media, political, both Democrat and Republican, that this is going very bad in the wrong direction. Well, I can tell you right now, Greg, reporting on your show, obviously not only the shootings, the fatalities, the various other issues that are not positive, lockdowns, looting, etc. Mayor Lightfoot obviously hated my reporting so much that she actually revoked my media credential, and we're still in federal court trying to get it back at this point. But that hasn't stopped me, obviously, thanks to you and others, the Daily Mail, etc. But
and really thanks to the First Amendment, right? Because you have the rights of the free press and the right of free speech.
I'm glad you still believe in it. But at any rate, here's where we're at, though. Okay, sadly, because of what I don't know what to attribute this to. I hate to attribute it to you know, I don't know what to attribute it to, but we haven't had a single leader stand up to do anything about any of these issues, Greg, Democrat or Republican in the entire state of Illinois. And now we are at the point where our Mayor Johnson, our Governor Pritzker, will force landlords to accept to house migrants in their buildings. Now, this is has nothing to do with race. You see, they want to make it all about race, right? But the fact of the matter is that any landlords typically try to rent to people that can pay the rent. There will not be a disruption. There will not be a danger to the other residents. If you're, anyone who's ever rented knows that they have that. First of all, rent that they that they have to go through a whole screening process. The migrants, we don't even know. We not only do we not know their criminal history, their medical history, their mental history. We don't know their names. We don't know anything about the migrants, right? And now landlords are going to be forced to rent to migrants. And we are going to be forced to pay their rent. You rattled off these numbers, any one of which would have made any rational or sane person go apoplectic 5, 10 years ago. um as you know, they we're told it'll only cost $25 million. And by the way, those are, make no mistake about it, those are our taxpayer dollars. Okay. But then we find out that that's just $25 million for this, stage round of the crisis, right? Then we have to do the next 25 million, and then the next 25 million.
Well, and then William, you got to consider too what the housing stock could look like if you have landlords pull out because they don't like the idea of not being able to properly screen somebody who may have or may not have a criminal history elsewhere based off their immigration status. But then you get into the issue of the sanctuary state status that the state of Illinois is, and even in the political conversation on the national level with former President Trump, the chief contender in the Republican Party. Looking like he's likely going to get the nomination for the GOP. He said that he would start a deportation process across the country to remove and deport those who've come into the country illegally over the past 3 years or so. But that would not be possible in the state of Illinois. Trump said, hey, we got to work with local law enforcement to make this happen. But in Illinois, that won't happen because law enforcement cannot work with ICE for immigration detainers if that's the sole reason that ICE is going after somebody to possibly move forward with proceedings of deportation. So you've got all of these things stacking up on itself. Do you think that there will be enough voices in Chicago or throughout the state to push back and have some policies change on this?
But what's the purpose of ICE? I mean, and as I think I reported last week, Pritzker wants to give literally guns and badges to the migrants. If you go to reporterwilliamjkelly.com, there is a petition there. Please add your name. I'm not asking, I don't think, help me help you, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. We really don't have the leadership in Illinois for the citizens. We have leaders, both Democrat and Republican. I'm not going to be, partisan about this. I'm a reporter, obviously, but I'm also a realist. I'm aware of the situation in Illinois. There are no Democrat or Republican leaders who are willing to stand up for citizens of the country. But they seem to be, for whatever reason, wildly enthusiastic about giving rights and taxpayer dollars to migrants. And if you look at my reporting on, on Twitter, for example, if you look at the videos, you'll see that any rational, any sane human being would question whether or not it's a good idea to have these migrants that are currently in the city of Chicago resettled in your apartment building, not only in Chicago but statewide. Um, this is probably the most serious issue that we've discussed so far, Greg, and it is truly alarming. Come to Chicago if you're Greg. I can't wait to come to Springfield for the state fair. Okay, and I'm looking forward to it. I love Saputo's. I love the meat platter. I love it all. Okay, I can't tell you how much I love it. But come to Chicago. Maybe before the state fair, come to Chicago.
We'll see.
Walk,
Yeah,
walk
we'll,
with
we'll
me
see if
to
we can
the,
make
uh,
that
to the end of
happen.
Chicago.
It's hard to travel during the week, especially when I got to be here at from 6 to
Yeah.
9 each morning. But William, of course, we're gonna have to talk about this in more detail because it's not just the migrants and the housing costs and the healthcare costs. It's the cost to the landlords and a whole host of other things, including the crime on the ground there. And that's something we'll
Out
have
of
to talk about
control.
in the future.
Out of control.
And do
Greg.
you foresee that the $30 million the state's going to use for peacekeepers is going to have any change?
From what I can tell, it is only accelerating the rate of violent crime on the streets of Chicago. From what I can tell, it's accelerating it. It's not in any way, shape, or form uh, preventing it. It is accelerating it.
Well, we'll definitely be talking more with William J. Kelly in the future. Greatly appreciate your time as always. Be safe up there, all right?
Thank you, Greg. God bless.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.